Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. You're tuned in to LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk.
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming, and this is the November 13th Black Grrrl Show, and we have some great guests. We have Natasha Deon, and we have Mark Steven Greenfield. But before we have our guest, we are going to do Breaking the Table, what we always do every Thursday. And this one is called The Murdering of the Middle Class. The Murdering of the Middle Class in Morningside Park, California. Owing to racism, the single-story narrative of everyone who is black is poor is the basis for most pro-gentrification arguments. There's this idea, if a person takes race out of it and we're truly objective, gentrification can only benefit a community that is predominantly African American. After all, who wants to live in a slum? I did not grow up in a slum. I grew up in a middle-class African-American community. Both of my best friends' mothers were housewives. One of my friends' dads was an engineer, and my other friend's dad was an attorney with a small law firm in the neighborhood. In Morningside Park, Inglewood's most heavily black district and the area with the most homeowners and registered voters, African Americans who moved in since the 1970s are better educated than the whites who left, said David E. Hayes Batista and Gregory Rodriguez of the UCLA Center for Study of Latino Health and Culture in their paper entitled Inglewood. I grew up in the predominantly African-American middle-class community of Morningside Park. It is a city in Inglewood, California. Inglewood boasts one of the most well-to-do black populations in the nation, according to Census Bureau. From the newer gated communities of Briarwood and Carlton Square to the older homes of Morningside Park, a large percentage of Inglewood's 54,000 black residents own their homes, which was stated in a LA Times article by Michael Fuchs about the 1992 rebellions. Black middle class helped to contain Inglewood's damage. As a child, I grew up with my mother and father. My mother was a housewife who had milk and cookies waiting for my twin sister and I when we would come home from the local Catholic school. According to the city data, the median income in the zip code 90305, which includes Morningside Park, is $65,000 a year. The median income in California is $57,000. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I did not think my family was unusual or an exception. The fact that I was surrounded with two-parent black families and black-owned businesses was simply normal. I still live in Morningside Park. According to a 2011 survey, 86% of Morningside Park is African American, and 34% of Morningside Park residents have a college degree. In the 2012 New York Times article, U.S. Bachelor Degrees Rates Passes Milestone by Richard Perez Pina, it stated that the average U.S. college graduation rate for African Americans is 19.7%, and for all adults, it's 30%. So in Morningside Park, we have 34%. In Los Angeles, we're going through a renaissance. Los Angeles has the largest homeless population in the U.S. The passage of realignment in California has given early release to a high number of convicted felons, and many of them will be released into Los Angeles. The homeless population and the convicted felons used to go to downtown L.A., but with that area being gentrified and is a new hot destination, that population is no longer wanted there. They also used to go to South LA, but many parts of South LA are by the new Metro Rail and are now highly desirable to white people. It appears that the powers that be have decided to actively destroy the largest block and highest percentage African-American middle-class community in LA County. They've instituted a plan to lower our home value so they can move in displaced populations and in 10 to 20 years flip the slum properties that they helped create for profit. The city of Inglewood began with closing our community library. Our city has 3 libraries, but they chose to close the library in the African-American middle-class community of Morningside Park. Along our business corridor, they made it increasingly difficult to open quality middle-class businesses. They began to litter our businesses with programs like low-income discount stores. And the city of Inglewood bought buildings in our community and let them become blighted and refused to sell them, lease them, or keep them up. Companies that appear to be currently working with the city of Inglewood and Los Angeles are actively sending letters to the African-American middle-class homeowners and telling them to sell their property to an agency so that company can flip those homes and turn them into Section 8 housing, group homes, and transitional housing. I am not. At the same time, The happy gentrification story is part of a racist American narrative. African Americans are the symbol for poverty in the U.S., whether our communities are middle class or working class. Under the racist U.S. framework, this country will always actively find a reason to destroy a thriving, politically active black community. It is a warning to black people to not work together to build a community, but to work only to assimilate. Because if white America isn't included, then your community will be destroyed. It will be destroyed by movies like Grand Canyon, which in 1991 characterized my entire community as a gang-infested ghetto. It will be destroyed by the media, which through health-funded journalism pathologizes African-American communities as sick as in need of being healed. It will be destroyed by active predatory lending by banks. Gentrification is a race thing. It is not a class thing. A middle-class black community is not valuable to the institution of racism. The idea that gentrification is a good thing is nothing more than another little white lie. And that was Breaking the Table. So thank you so much. We're going to have a little break, and then we're going to come back and speak to Natasha.
She is a desert, she is the sea.
Hello, we're back with the Black Girl Show, and right now we have Natasha. Hey, Natasha, and she's a Los Angeles attorney, writer, and law professor, creator of the reading series Dirty Laundry Lit. Dion was recently named one of LA's most fascinating people in LA Weekly's 2013 People Edition. You are fascinating. You are. You were awarded fellowships, residencies at Yale, Breadloaf Writers Conference, and the Virginia Center for Creative Arts. So I'm going to ask you a question, since I know that you're an LA native. What's your favorite LA neighborhood?
Oh. Right now, for the coffee and the people and the hills, is Echo Park.
Echo Park. Oh, yeah. I love Echo Park, yeah.
I love Echo. I love walking up the steep hills. I love just the community. I love the coffee. It just feels comfortable to me. And it reminds me of, I guess, my childhood, too.
Okay.
Off of La Brea and Adams right there, which was like your community, an all-black community, ice cream shop, church, just dry cleaners, all Mr. Blue, I remember his name. We would walk to church back then, and it was just a beautiful time. And it kind of reminds me of Echo Park in different ways, because you could still see the community in the heart that's there.
No, I understand what you're saying. Another community that I really like, one of my favorite communities, I mean, outside of Inglewood, outside of Morningside Park, is Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights is one of my favorite neighborhoods. Nice. It's just a community-oriented neighborhood, lots of art, lots of independent people doing lots of cool stuff. Yeah. I love Boyle Heights. Well, also, too, my great-grandfather's from Boyle Heights. So it's not just about me.
Right. It's totally
it's about everybody.
Right.
So you grew up in L.A.
Well, till I was about 7 or 8.
And then where'd you move?
And then we moved to Santa Clarita, North L.A.
North
L.A. County, yeah.
You see how L.A. gets bigger and bigger?
It's really big.
Remember how Santa Clarita used to be like, I don't know where that is. Is that like Sacramento?
No. We broke in. We were like one of the black families that broke in Santa Clarita. It was, there was me and my brother at my school and one other person. It was crazy, yeah.
No one was trying to touch your hair, right?
Girl, we're pets everywhere we go, one part person, one part. Yeah, and my daughter, people still want to touch her hair. And she's like, I don't mind. I'm like, yes, you need to mind.
You need to care. Yeah, you can make friends other ways. You can. Okay. Yeah. So let's go into Dirty Laundry Lit. I loved it because I met you at Chi Wan's reading series.
Yeah.
And I loved the whole thing you had going on. I liked it because it was dirty, right?
The readings were dirty.
Yeah. It was like they were like kind of X-rated, not X-rated. Okay, R-rated. No, Cinemax. Remember Cinemax?
Yes, Cinemax.
Yes, it's more like Cinemax rated.
Yes,
and I really appreciate that because I think it's important for adults to have culture, have things that are culture, but it's adult oriented, and especially as literary. There's so many like kind of like I don't know. So why did you start Dirty Laundry Lit?
Because I was looking for a reading series that had a lot of heart. Coming out of the 90s, I was at Cal State Long Beach with some of the, when the whole poetry slam and the rise of all that, you have this honesty that's there that became sort of, I don't know, watered down. Something happened after a few years in the 90s where it became something else, where everybody started sounding like everyone. Everything was about the moon between her thighs. It was just like, I didn't, but there was such a rawness in the beginning and such an honesty. And I wanted to create that in not just poetry, but literature, to make those readings interesting. Because if you've ever been to like a bookstore reading or even a college reading, some of them are pretty slow and long unless you know somebody who's reading. So I wanted something that was upbeat, that you could feel like a pulse in it. And they're not always dirty. Sometimes it's about, running away, a child running away, or a guy meeting his dad for the first time and he's 35 years old, or, a woman who's dealing with her boyfriend who's into porno, but none of the characters he likes watching look like her, or something like that. But it's about secrets. So the Dirty Laundry is really about the secrets that people don't tell and that they tell on our stage in such beautiful ways.
No, I did see that in your reading when you guys were reading at, I forgot, 90 by 90.
Yeah, 90
by 90.
DT Lab.
Yeah, DT.
Yeah,
exactly. So I was like, wow, this is just great. And another thing I noticed that you call it, you say I have a literary reading series. So I mean, are you purposely making a difference between literary and spoken word? Are you purposely making a difference when you do that, or it just sounds better with Dirty Laundry Lit?
Just lit was in the name, but it's really about all of it, everything that's on the page.
Okay.
So where the only difference I would guess between maybe spoken word and literary, which isn't really a difference, is that people read from paper instead of from memory as much. But you can read however you want, but usually it's just reading. Whatever you put on a sheet of paper, to me, is literary, even if it's poetry or spoken word or.
Well, I know there's a lot of times if you go to an event and you are black, they will automatically go, well, you are a spoken word. I'm like, and I was like, have you ever actually read anything that I've written, or have you actually seen me? Why would you even say I was a spoken word artist? Like, why? Is it, yeah.
No, and
there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But I'm saying you don't automatically shouldn't look at someone's race and go, well, you must be spoken word, and then if you have blonde hair, you must be literary.
Yeah, no. I mean, like with us, the other concern that I had was I wanted to make sure when people came to our reading that they could see somebody that looks like them on the stage.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important for all of us to be able to see ourselves there, to know that we belong there. So I don't have, it's different races, it's different ages. So we could have a 20-year-old and we could have a 75-year-old who's reading. Okay. Or we could have, there's women and men, black, white, Asian. I try to represent as many people as possible, sexuality, everything, so that people can say, oh, look, I'm here. I belong here. My voice is important. So that was also important to me, because every reading I had been to before then, I would often be the only black reader, or it was me and, maybe a few more. There'd be a guy who was African American, rarely any Asian readers. And even more absurd is that there's rarely any Latino readers, in LA, which is strange to me, unless you go to a reading that's, something with a theme that focuses on in that what you call the literary community.
Well, people of color, we can actually write, like black people can write outside of February. Latino people can write outside of May.
Exactly.
You would think that would be like a given, but I guess not all the time.
And the LGBT community, because they are often what I call ghettoized. Their books are also ghettoized, put with other books that are like that.
Yes.
And it's the voice of our nation, and I don't believe that it should be that way. So I try to represent everybody on our stage.
Your reading was, that's what I noticed. You had a diverse group of people on the stage, kind of representing their own stories of triumph, challenges. So, who are your literary influences?
Oh, I would say, the first writer who I just fell in love with was Romus Simpson, who, you wouldn't know him unless you were in LA or in the poetry scene. He's a poet who first sort of woke up the soul in me. I was like, you can do that with words. The first time I heard him read, I was a college student at Cal State Long Beach. This is during the 90s, and I was blown away. I read a lot growing up, but that was the first time where I felt like it was alive to me. And then I would say Sapphire, when she wrote Push, Edward P. Jones, Maya Angelou, Daniel Woodrell, who wrote Winter's Bone, which was really, I just love the sort of the cadences of the sentences.
Now I'm kind of in my own head. I'm kind of like wondering, like, when's Natasha gonna get a book? You've done all this stuff, and I know actually I'm like I've jumped too many questions. Right. That question was like lower on the. It was lower. Okay, so hold that in your head. Okay. Hold that in your head.
I'm holding.
Okay, I think another thing that's interesting about you is that you seem very plugged into the street scene, like eclectic spoken word scene, but you're also kind of plugged into academia at the same time. And what is the difference between those two scenes?
When in teaching, whether it's teaching law or creative writing or second graders at 826 LA, it's just, I think academia is that serious side, the let's get down to business side. And I'm just learning how to bring in who I am 100%, bringing in all the who I am to sort of, it's difficult to find the right words because they're too different. It's like two different brains or something. There's a creative side where you could sort of just, where imagination lives, and that part of you that's just sort of, that breathes, the soul part. And academia is more like, there's theory. It's not so much application as it is, learning how to do something. And there's not for me, it hasn't been so much room for that breathing to happen. And I'm slowly adding, it slips in anyway, because I have to be, but I mean, now I'm feeling okay to be who I am, in different settings, whether it's teaching law and giving them real life examples of what I do when I practice, or, that I was sort of trying to stay away from before.
So you actually, it's not my fault, you've actually released your secret identity as a criminal defense attorney.
Right.
So I mean, how does that? So your day gig is so funny. Everybody's like, my day gig is I work at In-N-Out. No, my day gig is that I'm a criminal defense attorney. So I mean, how does that influence you in regards to your writing?
Because it's all the same. You're still telling stories. You're being able to tell a story. I do what they call post-conviction work, which is after people have been convicted and kind of gone through the system and, are rehabilitated or not, and then sort of erasing that past to give them an opportunity to move on into their life without that stigma of who they were. And I believe that that's necessary for all of us, from being, the mistakes that we make as children aren't the same things that we do as an adult. And I believe everybody deserves that chance. And when you have this criminal record behind you, it's always there and always informing you, whether you want it to or not, whether you're trying to get a kid out of foster care, or you're trying to get a job or an apartment or whatever, it's always there. So, so the stories that I tell, I have 5 minutes to stand in front of a judge, less than 5 minutes in some cases, to tell a story of this person who is not the same person they are on paper in that rap sheet or who they are now. So being able to tell that story precisely, I think, has sharpened my writing.
Oh, okay. That, I mean, you're very lucky to have a storyteller as but you know what do you say your writing, the genre of your writing is like? What would you, who, to be Afrofuturism. No, you're actually not that. You're like, so like I've had so many people who are part of that whole little scene, but you're not doing that at all.
No.
That's why people, when I brought my friend who really does not appreciate my different art events that I go to, she's always like, but she really liked you. She was like, oh, I can relate to everything that's happening here. I can relate to everything that's happening here. So you're very, you have kind of like the academic appeal, but you also have the mainstream appeal. You have like that woman on the verge, like that movie, Women on the Verge of a Murderous Breakdown. You have that appeal. Right. So what genre?
I'm writing the novel that I have that's out on submission is historical fiction. So it's sort of that academic part of me, because I'm interested in history, and it's about 3 outcast women on the eve of the Civil War fighting the battle of their lives. And it's like there's a runaway slave, her daughter, who appears to be white, and there's also a Jewish prostitute. And it's very
very
straight.
you.
It's diverse, it's academic, it's history, but it's about the people. It's about the characters, and seeing through that, that we're who we are from our circumstance and how we come into the world, but we're also other things inform who we are. But at our heart, we all want the same thing. We don't want to be hungry. We want to be happy. We die. We're born. Things like that. So.
No, that's if you see me, I'm like, yeah, I really, that's very true, Natasha. Right. These are all the things that I want in my life. The reason when you asked me about am I sort of this Afro, I used to always want to be that. I tried so hard to be like, I'm so, I'm so down. But that's not who I am, and I have to, even though that's part of who I am. Yeah. So I can only be who I am, and that's sort of what I'm learning at this point in my life, whether it's going from the creative world to the courtroom to an academic setting, or in my writing too. Like, I don't have to be super this or super that. I can only do me. Well, I think that's one thing that I try to do is, even with this show, I kind of showcase the other side of Black LA, and I try to showcase, what is Black. I try to challenge that. I always tell people, like, when I moved back to Inglewood, I'm like, well, I'm taking back over Black. I'm taking back over. Right. I'm not letting you just, because the thing is that I think a lot of people who are a little bit different, think things differently, they end up getting pushed out of Black America. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? No, not happening. I'm back here. I'm Black. I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it, and you're gonna be okay with it.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Right
on.
I talk about that a lot in essays and things like that. Is being Black and still owning that, and there's nothing. I'm only a small part that can contribute to what that means.
So what is your hope for literary Los Angeles? Because people so much say that LA is not a literary town. They view it as like just these shallow people that just care about TV and being pretty and all that stuff. But I mean, what are your hopes for? What do you say people who say there is no literary culture in Los Angeles?
Well, first of all, I totally care about being pretty.
Yeah,
no.
Right. Yeah.
No, but
we all do.
Right. We want to look our best. We don't want to walk out, smelling bad. No, but always trying to.
And she does smell wonderful. It's really strange.
It's those washer things, those little dots you put in the water. No, what I would want to see in literary LA is for it to represent the population, to represent writers, and it's all about having voice and pushing up against the dominant voice, or what we're told, how we're told we're supposed to sound all the time, whether that's you're Black, so you have to write like this, or you can only go to these kinds of art shows. I've seen your Facebook posts. You're everywhere. You every kind of taste, and I love that. But I think all of that needs to be represented in literary, and I don't think there's one way to be Black or one way to be Asian or anything, and there's diversity within us, and I want to showcase that, and I think that we should see that on the stage, at least on the stages that I have, that I can offer.
And so I know that you have where is your reading? I know it's a reading series, but also you guys do like print stuff too, right? Don't you have like a website that you put work on? And
well, we put recordings on, so we
Okay.
have readers that read for our show come on, and we call it the Rogue Room, where they read their pieces, and it's just 3 minutes, and then they just go. And it's recorded by Dave Thomas, who's like the voice of Home Depot.
Okay.
And he just makes it really good. He teaches you how to read your work without it sounding, like poet voice. That nothing. If people do poet voice, okay, but I mean, just to sort of add the emotion. I always say it's the emotion or that voice you hear when you're writing.
Yes.
When you're writing that piece, there's a voice. At least I believe that all writers hear, whether it's their own or someone else's. And just to go back to that place, so when they read, that's what the audience hears as well, instead of sort of this monotonous sound. So.
Yeah, and where does your reading series take place?
It's at the Virgil in Hollywood usually, but we've been lucky enough to work with Writ Large. So the one you came to at the train station, that was with Writ Large Press and Chiwan Choi, who's awesome. And we recently did another event. But usually it's with Penn Center USA. So it was them who originally supported us, and we used to bring in writers from all over the nation, Willie Davis, Caitlin Greenidge. So some of the up-and-coming writers, Mecca, Jamila Sullivan, all of them, they would come out to L.A. because I thought, we could bring some spice, but there's so much here already,
Exactly.
who's trying to, make their way in the world. So I thought maybe we should try something else and focus on L.A., so...
And I know there was a dinner yesterday, 2 days ago, right? The Penn USA dinner.
Yeah. The Penn Lit Awards.
Yes.
It was amazing. Star-studded, all that. And Aisha Tyler hosted that. And I told her, I said, you're such an inspiration. Aisha's on the talk.
Yeah.
Because...
she's the Girl on Guy show.
Yeah.
It's almost as good as this show.
No, this show is the bomb. Go back to my 90s roots. Yes, the bomb. I said it.
So you can't stop talking now. You have to keep going through the track. So I mean, if somebody wanted to submit to Dirty Laundry Lit, like what would they do?
They usually just email dirtylaundrylit@gmail.com, and then I can get their information there. But usually we like to hear them read before, so if there's somewhere they're on YouTube or wherever, we can hear them, because we also like personalities, people who could pull off their pieces instead of
Yeah.
So it's a little bit important because we only have 7 spots, at our maximum, but usually 6. So we actually cast the readers. So even if we like the work on page, we're like, hey, let's hear you read, because we want it to be exciting. There's 200 people that show up at the Virgil, so it's like standing room only, like a rock concert. Jeff Ayers hosts. He wrote jokes for Saturday Night Live. He worked for CNN. So it's just, we like to keep it going and keep it engaged so that people who never considered themselves readers can say, you know what, I could be on that stage. I want to pick up a book. I want to see where I can find that. So it's about literacy as well.
Okay. And do you have an event that's going on? I want you to plug.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so this is Artists Against Cultures of Violence, and this is put on by Darlene Creasel. This is out in Riverside, this particular event. And there's Simona Supakar, I'm reading, Patina Rogers, Ruth Nolan, Hope Wabuki, who writes for different magazines. She's a real force. And there's going to be music and Wes Creasel. It's just a great event, and we're just speaking out against violence and how we perceive violence in our culture.
Okay. And
that's November 15th from 6 to 8. It's at Back to the Grind, and that's at 3575 University Avenue in Riverside.
And Riverside is not that far.
No.
It's not that far. It's like on the 15.
Yeah.
And the MetroLink will take you there too.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. I've been to the I have experience in Riverside.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. I have an interesting experience there.
Really?
Yeah,
What's that?
I think I got thrown out of college there at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
let's not. Okay. Well, we can talk.
We'll talk about that later.
Right.
I can't really remember Riverside, but I remember it was far. And I woke up and I was back in Los Angeles
with a note.
Yeah, with a note. Send it back.
Don't come back.
Don't come back ever.
Well, Riverside isn't a terrible place to be kicked out of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So many. I'm kicked out so many places.
I know, right?
Okay. So you know what, Natasha?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tika.
I really appreciate you coming here. We had a great conversation, and I will actually put all of her information beneath.
Yay.
So have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thank you so much.
All right.
I still can't figure just what you did wrong. You were 19 years old with your whole life ahead. And with 23 bullets, 4 cops shot you dead. Yeah, you sat in your car and a seizure took hold. And your kin tried to wake you as you shook in the cold. Yeah, the doors were all locked and you wouldn't come to. So they called the authorities to help rescue you. In the Riverside 4, they soon did arrive. Yeah, they rushed to the car and pushed family aside. Now a 38 pistol lay there on your seat. Yeah, you foamed at the mouth and your future looked bleak. And the Riverside 4 started rapping on the glass. Oh, but you were still shaking, you were fading so fast.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
It started out like a totally normal day.
I love you.
I mean, I guess I was a little sweaty and I was definitely sore. I thought I had gas. Turns out I was having a heart attack. Heart disease is the #1 killer of American women. So now I take care of myself and tell the other women in my life to do the same. Make it your mission to save your life and the lives of the women you love. Find out more from the American Heart Association at goredforwomen.org.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more just talk.
Hi, this is Dick and Sharon, inviting you to join us every Monday at 3 Pacific for LA Progressive Live.
Join us as we cover the progressive landscape both locally and across the nation.
So don't forget to tune in to LA Progressive Live every Monday at 3 Pacific.
Exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio.
Or just watch and listen directly at latalklive.com and LA Progressive Live. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live and LA Progressive Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network. and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming with The Black Grrrl Show. And we have a great guest up next. But I'm going to give you a few announcements before Mark is on with us. The Repass is running an Indiegogo. So please support the Repass. Remember the person, Ray Shaw. She has a film on New Orleans and Katrina. That's actually about it for our announcements. So I'm going to actually now, hello, Mark, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm going to read your bio, a little bit of your bio.
Okay.
A native Angelino, Mark Stephen Greenfield studied under Charles White and John Riddle at Otis Art Institute in a program sponsored by the Golden State Life Insurance Company. He went on to receive his bachelor's degree in art education in 1973 from Cal State University, Long Beach. Oh, wow, so you guys should probably know each other, sort of.
We know a lot of the same people.
To support his ability to make art, he has held various positions as a visual display artist, a park director, a graphic design instructor, and a police artist before returning to school and graduating an MFA degree in painting and drawing from Cal State LA in 1987. I think the interesting thing was the police artist part.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I mean, what happened?
They offered me that job 3 times, and I turned it down twice.
Yeah.
The third time I said, oh, there's something that says I'm supposed to take this.
Yeah.
You know, I had always had interesting brushes with the law as I was growing up, and so I thought maybe in the back of my head they just wanted to keep an eye on me.
Well, especially, yeah, and you grew up in Los Angeles. And what neighborhood are you from?
I lived in Leimert Park.
Okay.
And then I lived in Inglewood for a while.
Yay! No, just kidding. Sorry.
Actually, it's interesting. I lived in the county. I lived in the unincorporated area for a while. But I remember back in 1973 being chased out of Inglewood by some white boys.
Yeah. That happened.
And they used to call it Little Georgia around here.
Yeah. Inglewood was an interesting place. The last place, in 1971, they had to go to court to get their schools integrated.
Right.
Which was kind of late after Montgomery, Alabama. So I guess they had a problem with us being there.
Yes.
So let's see here. You have a show going on in CAM.
I have a show going on in CAM.
Looking back in front of me, selected works of Mark Stephen Greenfield, 1974 to 2014. Tell us a little bit about the show. I mean, go ahead. I can make.
It's interesting because you see. First of all, it's difficult to explain artwork on the radio.
Yes, of
course. You understand that. So I'll try to do as best I can. But when you see the show as an aggregate, you start to understand the autobiographical quality of it in so many ways. It starts off actually just coming out of Cal State Long Beach when I was introduced to Transcendental Meditation. And at one point, there used to be an all-black center for Transcendental Meditation in Leimert Park.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people didn't know that.
No.
And the Maharishi believed that, we needed to be exposed to this because most African Americans were under a great deal of stress. And this is one of those methods by which you can relieve stress and at the same time impact the rest of your community. So I immediately saw the value of it. And when they started talking about it from the standpoint of the science of creative intelligence and how it draws out the creativity in you, I said, oh, this is an added bonus. I got to do this. And so my early work in the show is really influenced by that. And you'll see star patterns and nebula and things that relate to the universal consciousness. And then I got into an area of Afrofuturism. I was listening to Parliament Funkadelic.
Yes.
I was listening to Sun Ra. I was listening to Miles.
Yeah.
All these people, you put it in your head, you roll it around, and you figure out a different way to put it on canvas. And so some of these things were really very futuristic. I was reading Octavia Butler at the time, but I was also reading Frank Herbert and the Dune trilogy and a lot of science fiction. And so a lot of that comes out. And in so many of these paintings, what I was trying to do is actually imagine what a black race in the future would look like. And because in so many instances you did not see us characterized as being in the future outside of Uhuru and Star Trek,
Exactly. And no, exactly. And it was kind of that's not exactly. Maybe I wouldn't want to be like that exactly.
Right.
So you want to be more futuristic, more more power, more creative, and be doing something besides being a white guy's assistant. Yeah. So, like more the shame. More. I mean, I think something really interesting you put down in regards to your work. Essentially, I am reappropriating. Well, this is probably your later work. Your later work. Your later.
I took an interesting turn because at one point when I reestablished connection with my father, we had been estranged for almost 30 years. I got into studying his genealogy because he wanted to know who his father was. He never knew. He just knew his father was white. And so in studying about him, I also studied about my mother's side of the family. And so when you're doing genealogical research, there's a lot of history that comes into it and a lot of documentation of this stuff like that. So I was looking at that part of the African American culture. And then I went through a period of about 2 years where I didn't do any work. And I was just more or less gathering information and thinking about where I was going to go. And one of the things that occurred to me was that in so many instances, we have a visceral reaction to stereotypical characterizations of ourselves.
Yes, yes.
And to allow something to have that much power over you for an extended period of time is not healthy. And one of the things that you deal with in meditation is also expunging some of those things that exist on the subconscious. And so realizing that this was part of the American psyche on so many levels, both African American and white people have to deal with this, I decided that it was time to actually appropriate this. What is it? It's reappropriating the appropriated.
Okay.
And in doing that, what you do is you kind of neutralize it. You take the power away from it. And so I thought it was time for us to start engaging these things and to more or less expunge them from our nervous systems on a lot of levels. Because my mother had a really, hard reaction to this.
That's why I was wondering, like, how do people feel about it?
You lost your mind. You know? And the thing about it is I had to understand that she was very close to that. And so I could understand her reaction. My grandmother, of course, would never tolerate anything like that.
Yeah.
My generation is dealing with it in so many ways out of deference to the prior generation. But our children's generation is looking at, they said, this is important from a historical standpoint, but they don't identify with it. It's not me. And that's where we should all be, I think. It's not us. And in so many instances when I'm doing these things, using pictures of white people in blackface, I have to remind people, first of all, what they're looking at, because some of them look kind of quizzically. It's like, what is that? And I also have to remind them, it's not so much about us. It's about the people that felt they had to do this. And so some of the work that has to take place actually has to take place in the broader American society, I feel. And I'm giving them entree to do that. I was, when Spike Lee came out with Bamboozled, I was cautiously optimistic that there would be an engagement there. And then somewhere in the middle of the movie, it just kind of broke down into some Hollywood bull.
Well, that's what happens because they don't want to hear the truth.
Right.
And so, like, you in your pieces in Cam in that kind of retrospect. So it's kind of like you have the Afrofuturism. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I got excited because I wanted to talk about the caricature.
Well, most people do because it's the most controversial.
It's the most controversial. That's not really but there's another work called Sunday Best.
Right. That's all the stuff about genealogy. And
research. So that's kind of like was that between.
That was the precursor.
Okay, yeah, the precursor. Yeah. So it's like it's I'm sorry, it's between like the Afrofuturism, Sunday's Best, and actually there was another series in there that had nothing. It was just dealing with gangs. Yeah, so Crenshaw Consciousness.
Well, Crenshaw Consciousness was dealing with the artists, musicians, and eccentrics that lived in the Leimert Park area.
Okay.
When I was doing research about Leimert Park, I found out that artists had been living there for over 85 years, even before we got there.
Yes.
And so I said, there's got to be something in the ethers here. This is a real creative community for a certain reason. I started documenting the artists that I knew that lived in the area and also the eccentrics, because to some degree, to be an eccentric in Leimert Park, you have to live a creative lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. You do have to live a creative in all ways.
In all ways.
So
I had a lot of fun with that. But then after that, I did a whole series about gangs because I had been working at the time with Rosie Greer's Giant Step. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No.
It was a job training program in the 80s.
Okay.
It was actually the most successful job training program in the country.
Oh, wow.
And we were taking hardcore unemployed mostly gang members, people that wanted to turn their lives around, and getting them into the workforce. And so I had a lot of contact with gang members, former gang members, people who are trying to leave the gangs. And when I was growing up, I had a lot of contact with gang members too. There were two predominant gangs in Los Angeles, the Slossons and the Gladiators. And when you go down the street, you had to identify with one or the other. If you said the wrong thing, you would get dropped where you were.
I'm just like I'm fascinated with gang culture in Los Angeles and how it developed, and I mean that kind of like why you kind of did I mean it wasn't about the history of gangs, but
not the history,
it wasn't
so
about
much,
the history, but yeah.
The thing too is I understand the mentality behind gangs, because in so many instances it's about looking for that unconditional love that you get with the fraternity of actually being in a gang, and so that's a very noble aspiration. But the way that it's carried out, the way that things that the gang members have to do is the stuff that is abhorrent, that's so negative. It's really unfortunate.
Well, part of it, as Dr. Valerie Thomas says, diasporic vertigo, like it's a way of them dealing with it, and it's kind of it's not maybe necessarily healthy for themselves or the community, but it's almost like they're forced to behave this way owing to the circumstances. I mean, and I think that's one thing that's so great about your work, kind of like you're showing all these like aspects of African American culture, and kind of from not necessarily. It is kind of very LA though, like your perspective. You're very LA people are very LA, like but I mean we are so maligned. They always telling us we're not really art. We don't really have art here. We don't really have literature here. So we have to like prove them wrong. Right. And I mean I think it's so great that you're having this at CAM. In regards to, because CAM is going through kind of a transition period. Yes. And I mean, I think CAM has really stepped up its game in regards to, just for your show.
Well, that's a high compliment.
No, but it is though, because I was like, I don't know why I was shocked, like that your show was there. I don't know why I was shocked. It shouldn't have been shocked. It should have been like, oh yeah, well, of course, Mark's show would be there. That would be like the place where it would be.
Well, one of the things that actually kept the show from being there sooner was the fact that the former director was a very, very close friend of mine. And we didn't really want there to be the appearance of favoritism or anything like that. So, what happened is I started to get fellowships and recognition and residencies and things like that, and then it became much more acceptable, the idea of me showing there.
I just think that to me is insane. Just because you guys were friends, but you're like an artist, but you're an artist, and you are an artist of note in Los Angeles. I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, I appreciate that, but I didn't want to. Okay. And here's the other part of that is that it's. You have to be pretty courageous to show some of that work.
Yes. Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, are people not upset with you? Are some people upset with you?
People have been upset with me for 10 years.
Yes. Okay? Yes.
And that's okay.
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Because there are just as many people that are not upset with me, and they understand the reason for doing this work was actually to stimulate a badly needed dialogue on the subject. And the dialogue at this point is raging, and I feel really good about that.
Yeah, that you happen to be part of that whole like upswing that's happening. Just like they were talking about the N-word and what happened with I guess the Piers Morgan thing, and he had an essay. But then someone today, I forgot the person's name. He's actually a person. He's actually a famous kind of a singer writer, and he wrote about why would I not want to embrace what scares white people most about using the term nigger. Yeah, and I was like, and I kind of think in a way. It's like with your work, especially like your later work, it is, you're kind of reappropriating it, but you're also kind of embracing what is the terror of what black people, what white people think black people would be, but you're kind of like taking that and making art out of it, and then like showing it back out to the face.
Well, it goes deep into the idea of the shadow theory. If you don't really take the power away from something like that. If not so much embrace it, but if you don't acknowledge it, then it becomes your shadow, and it can come out and bite you in ways that you have absolutely no control over. Like for instance, if you're homophobic, your first child is going to be homosexual.
Yeah, it's just how all these things work. Just because it's like you are I don't know. It's how these things work in regards to, because you should be able to face what you are, face who you are, and not be, I don't know. I think that you're doing courageous work, but I really feel like in a way it's like I could totally see people viewing this in a, some people having some challenges with it and it not being accepted, and people just not wanting to have the conversation, because sometimes when you have these hard conversations, people are just kind of like, I want you to be quiet. I want you to stop talking. I mean, when you were at this is a totally different conversation now. I talk way too much.
That's okay.
Now you were the director of the Watts Tower Art Center.
They directed me.
They directed you. Like, how? I mean, I always feel like it's weird, because I feel like in a way a lot of, like there are two black LAs. Mm-hmm. There's the East Side and the West Side. And I was trying to explain, like, what does that mean in regards to, like, when I tell people who are not black, when I talk about the East Side and the West Side, they're like, there's only one. I'm like, no, there's two. And so,
I think there are even more than two.
There are even more than two. But I'm the rest of the people who came after the 2000. I can't be concerned with you.
Right.
But how was that experience? I mean, I know you were also at Barnesville, but what about in regards to the Watts Tower Art Center?
That was the most exhilarating time of my life on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also a very difficult time. Watts needs so much.
Mm-hmm.
Watts has been maligned for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be down there, you realize that you have the ability to make some sort of change. But then when you start to see how government treats that community or mistreats it,
exactly,
or denies its services, then you get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in my case, my activism starts to come out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a difficult position for anybody to be in, because on the one hand, you are the caretaker for internationally recognized national monument.
Yes.
Okay, which you see 30,000 visitors a year. At the same time, they have to come through that community in order to get there. And sometimes they've received advice that, this is a dangerous place to go. And I think LA is dangerous in general.
Yes.
I don't think there's any particularly safe place. I don't think, I'm not going to go walking through the projects at 2:00 in the morning unless I know somebody there.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be walking through like the gated community, like Beverly Glen, and Beverly Hills either at 2:00 in the morning,
exactly,
unless you know somebody. The same thing could happen to you.
Right.
Same thing could happen to, especially you.
But they were always cutting my budget,
mm-hmm.
and you'd try to see how much you could accomplish with the little bit that you had. So many of the youth that I came across there felt that sense of being maligned.
Mm-hmm.
Felt that they realized that everybody was scared of them. If 2 or 3 of them were in a group together, then everybody would get nervous about that. And I would have researchers that would contact me from Stanford, some of these universities, and they said, well, tell us about the kids in your program. How many of them are ex-gang members? How many of them have done drugs and stuff like that? And I said, I don't get into their business like that. And I don't know what you're going to do with this information. So why do you want to know? I'm just glad to have them in the door, because it means they want to change their lives on some level.
I'm just amazed that conversation even happened.
Stuff
You're
like that
an
happens.
art center.
I know.
Why would
but you're an art center, but at the same time, you realize very quickly that you have a social responsibility the minute you get there.
Yes.
Because it's the only. The art center basically represented the city in that neighborhood. I mean, I had people that came over and said, Mark, I got this parking ticket the other day. It's like, it's bogus. Can you do anything about this? I said, no. I got a beehive in my backyard. It's like, what can you do about that?
So it was almost like you guys were the only viable communicating to the community part of the city.
Exactly.
So people viewed it as, wow, that's just challenging. I mean, what? Wow. Okay. I'm in shock. Like, what? That's just insane. So, in regards to like like Black Los Angeles in regards to the art, or just art in general? I mean, what do you see? What do you want for the future of Los Angeles art, or what do you think's going to happen?
Well, I become kind of cynical. I mean, I spent a semester teaching as a visiting professor out at Cal Arts, and that was the beginning of the cynicism. And then, I go to these art fairs and I see how the arts have been commodified to a point now where there's more hype than there is substance.
It is true. That is true.
And, I see a lot of some of these people that are coming out of art school now, they're trying to get $100,000 for a painting.
Yeah.
And, you got to love them for the effort. But they're on this fast track where they've got basically 4 to 5 years to become successful, and if they don't, the market is going to look at the next person that just got out of school. One of the things that's very distressing, when I was at Cal Arts teaching in the School of Art, there were over 400 students. There were only 2 African Americans that were there.
Wow,
there's only 1 African American instructor in the School of Art.
At Cal Arts.
At Cal Arts.
This is in Southern California, and that how does that exactly happen? Well, so I know how it happens.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have an idea of how it happens, but it's such a closed world.
Well, I mean, get me into my activist thing. But when you start talking about the visual arts, for a lot of mainstream society, it's kind of like the last bastion thing that they're holding on to. They lost basketball, and they lost football, they've lost music, they've lost dance. It's like, no, we're going to hold on to art.
So no one else can have it,
and we're going to control it as much as we can. And so there are a few African American artists in the city that are very, very successful. But it's just like, with everybody, it's almost like a quota. You've got Mark Bradford, who's very successful. You've got Betty Saar, who's been successful for decades. Bill Paggio, some of these people that were doing work, for the last 40 years, they've been successful. But you don't find as many young people that are coming out of school now that are realizing that same success.
Yes, it almost seems like they want you to wait or to earn it. But the thing is that with the artists, they want them to be young. So, and I have no idea. This is like, what is this, acting now? Like we have to be like fetuses now in order to be successful. But
I'm not sure. I mean, there's some bright spots. I mean, Michelle Papillon has opened up the gallery in Lamert Park, and they're featuring a lot of young African American artists. They haven't gotten to the price point yet that I think they need to be at. But I think I'm cautiously optimistic.
Oh yes, they had Contour there, and I mean it's that's a great gallery. I mean, but also I think Cam could really be the spot in regards to like an anchor for Black arts.
But the thing is, we have to get behind Cam.
Yes, we do.
I mean, it's everybody complains about what Cam should be, but it's been very rare that anybody has actually articulated that to the leadership at CAM.
Yes.
And I think we have to become much more active in that regard. And then there's also this interesting tug of war that goes with CAM, because there's a certain air of expectation. On the one hand, you've got people that want it to be a historical institution, and on the other hand, you've got people that want it to be an arts institution. And they're constantly at war with each other about, this show has too much art in this show. There's not enough history in this show. There's too much history in this show. There's not enough art in this show.
I'm partly the art camp, so
yeah.
I'm like, I don't care about that. I mean, I want some art here. I mean, I really, and I agree with you. Like, every time if somebody says something about CAM, I'm like, do you have a membership? I have a membership at CAM. Do you go to their events? Do you spend money? Do you help them raise money? Because that's what you need in order to have an institution. You need people who are willing to get in their pockets, because this is not communist Russia, and you need to give money in order for it to.
The other thing that has to happen is I think we've got to shame some of the people that are in this town.
Yeah.
You know, you've got so many sports figures here. What are in other cities? The sports figures are supporting those institutions. Why haven't they stepped up here? You've got so many people in the entertainment industry here that could support the arts, that have the wherewithal to do that. Where are they when it comes to
costs nothing? I mean, with nothing
lunch
for them.
money?
Yeah,
lunch money for them.
Yes,
okay.
to help Cam.
Exactly.
And so we really, that's you know, before we go, because we're almost wrapping it up. It was great talking to you. What the show runs until April, correct?
Actually, the show's been extended now. It's going to run through July of next year.
Oh wow! Okay, good. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
And we've got a host of programs that are going to be associated with the show. One of them is going to deal specifically with African American stereotypes, and we're going to have 2 people that did this play called The Dance that are going to come out, and then we're going to have a workshop on genealogy, African American genealogy.
Okay, and I will definitely take all the links from that and put it below and actually connect it into the video, so everybody can know exactly what's going on and know when it's happening. Thank you so much, Mark. It was great talking to you, and hopefully we're going to get some more people out there supporting. And actually, we're going to actually have Cam here next week. We're going to have Denise. The librarian at Cam is going to be here, and we're going to be talking to the Amy of the LA Islam Arts Initiative. Will also be here, so we're going to have a great show, and hopefully all of you will run out and join Cam right now. All right, thank you so much, Mark, and thank you so much, Natasha, and thank you, Richard. You can watch LA Talk Live. Well, actually, not LA Talk. You can watch the Black Girl Show on latalklive.com, iTunes R&B, Live 365, Ustream TV. And, of course, if you want to get in touch with me, you can use the hashtag BlackGirl, BLKGRRRL, and I'll be happy to get back to you. All right, this is the Black Girl Show. This is Tika Lark Fleming signing off, and thank you so much.
We know there are many choices of internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.